How can you do an end of year review and also a life audit? Having done now more than 300 episodes on my podcast and YouTube, I know how fundamental it is to pause and reflect on the different projects that you have done to see what are some of the lessons learned and what you can take away. Let's explore this today a little more in depth. Firstly, what does a life audit look like and why is it so important to do this? If you don't do a life audit and you just continue living your life on autopilot, what can often happen is midlife crisis. It's reaching a point where you realize that you're actually not in the place that you would like to be and you're feeling unfulfilled and stuck and dissatisfied in your life. This is because along the way, we don't often pause to reflect on our life, to reflect and ask ourselves the deeper and bigger, more meaningful questions, and to explore a little more. Why are we here? What do we like about what we're doing? What are some areas that we would like to change in our life? When we don't pause to reflect on these topics, these things add up, and at some point we feel this hollowness, this emptiness, and this dissatisfaction. This is something I've also experienced several times in my life when I was on autopilot, just rushing from one thing to the next and not really pausing to ask myself these deep questions. There's another reason we don't pause to do this, and this is because we fear that when we pause and observe the different areas in our life and really think about this in depth, that we will feel that pain, that we will feel that frustration and disappointment and guilt and anger and shame on a bigger level. This is true. I'm not going to deny this. When you pause and explore, and if there's certain areas where you're really not aligned in your life, you will feel pain. But here's the thing. If you don't, the pain is still there, but it's in the background and it's continuous and it can even last a whole life. Whereas if it's something that you pause and explore, it can be tricky. You might need psychological help, therapy, maybe coaching, maybe counseling to explore and uncover some of maybe the guilt, the shame, the sadness, the anger that's there. But guess what? Maybe this takes you 3-6 months, depending on your situation, and then you feel you can go over to the other side and continue living your life without this as a weight. This is why it's so worth pausing and reflecting on our life once a year, if you want to do this at the end of each year, or once a month. The more often you do it, the more aligned you will be in your life and the less big surprises and pain you will feel because you're constantly asking yourself the deep, meaningful questions. What does a life audit look like? There's this tool called the Wheel of Life that you can break down into maybe 9 areas of your life. But first, let's look at the 3 overarching areas. And the 3 overarching areas are your health, your relationships, and your work. In each one, you can break it down further. But first, you can just ask yourself overall, in these 3 categories, how do you feel? How do you feel about your health? Already some things might be popping up. Maybe you feel amazing, super on track, you're really happy with everything. Maybe one specific area of health stands out. Maybe it's sleep, maybe it's exercise, maybe it's nutrition, maybe it's time in nature. And then you think, okay, this is something I want to explore. In health, you can also include mental health, and that would include personal development and learning. And so all of these things you can fit under health. I've also reflected on spirituality, and for those of you who have a spiritual inclination, you might want to either have it as a 4th category, or you can also, I believe, put it under health, in the sense that I think of health and spirituality as a whole and helping you to feel more connected with yourself, with the world, and this also contributes to our mental health. So you can choose if you want to put spirituality or religion, if you're religious, as a totally separate category or under health umbrella. So as you reflect closely on all these areas, health, then relationships, and then work, there are probably a few things that stand out as joy, happiness. Hopefully there's a few you feel happy in each of the areas, or aligned or satisfied. And I invite you to explore and ask yourself, which areas am I satisfied in within my relationships or within my work? And there might be some that are really a bit like a needle or a stone in your shoe, and you think, I really want to do something about this. As you audit your life, you can correlate it with reviewing your whole year and seeing what this year have you done or put in place that contributes to these different areas. For instance, if you're looking at health, what have you done this year in terms of your health that has helped you to be more healthy, to be more fulfilled, to have better mental health? And what are some things that maybe you stopped or you didn't start that are maybe holding you back? Same in relationships. You can audit where you're now in your relationships, and at the same time ask yourself during the year, what are some habits that you put in it, or what are some actions that you took that helped you to have better relationships? And the same with your work, your business, your career, your mission, whatever you choose to call it. Look at what are some things that happened during the year that helped you in this category to feel more aligned and fulfilled, and what are some things that really aren't as aligned. Generally, just doing this brief exercise will already highlight a few things. One note of warning: please, when you do this, some self-compassion, because what can happen is, as we review our year, if especially we began on the 1st of January thinking, this is the year I'm finally going to start jogging, or I'm finally going to begin this hobby, or I'm finally going to start my own business, or I'm going to get into dating, or whatever you decided at the start of the year. If you haven't achieved it by the time you review your whole year, there can be a bit of guilt or a bit of shame. These things have been proven scientifically to not help you to move forward. These are habits, emotional habits, that will hold you back. By contrast, if you apply compassion, and compassion is not complacency. Compassion is just, okay, that's what happened. Those were the choices I made. From this, what can I learn? And how can I avoid this in the future? And what are some systems, some tools, some habits, some practices that I can put in place to help me move forward with this? Once you have this self-compassion, it will make it so much easier for you to see it with clarity and not through the lens of guilt or shame or frustration or upset. All of these things will really taint your review and not help you to see clearly what can be done, what can you put in place, what can you change and shift. As you review all of these different areas, you can break it down. So you can break down health into physical exercise, nutrition, sleep, time in nature, and you might want to add the mental health also, learning, personal development, whatever area you feel is important. Then under relationships, separating family, social life and friends, and your work relationships, and ask yourself in all of these areas, how fulfilled are you? How aligned are you? What are certain things that you're really happy of and proud of, and what are certain things that you would like to change and shift? And in work, financially, in terms of your purpose, are you aligned with your purpose? Clients, do you enjoy the clients you're working with? Or if you're an employee in a company, do you enjoy the projects you're working on, or your collaboration with your colleagues? And just map it out. If everything is in the red, if you're doing colors or 2 out of 10, then that's a sign that things need to change, and you just start with whatever block calls your attention more. If all is pretty good and harmonious, fantastic, and then just ask yourself what would be the next step forward in each of these. When we pause and observe our life like this in a more detached way, a bit more from above, we gain so much clarity. And it's also possible that while you're doing this, one area in specific or one specific thing really shines through. Maybe it's changing careers. Maybe it's finally prioritizing your sleep. Maybe it's your relationship with someone in your life or in your family. But generally, one thing is like, ding! It's like pointing at you directly, and you feel the emotional aspect of this. That's needs to be addressed, because if you don't, it'll still be there a year from now and the pain will be bigger. Somehow something needs to be addressed, and this can be done once more depending on the situation, depending on the specific point. If it's something more physical, it might be through finally seeing a doctor about it or having a personal trainer. If it's something more emotional, it might be through seeing a therapist or journaling or listening to different things to help you through it, or allowing yourself that space that you need to process certain things. If it's career, it might be applying to new jobs. It might be finally putting in the papers to start the company. It might be hiring or working with a co-founder and changing a bit your structure within your business. So it's looking at, okay, what are the different steps and actions that I can put in place? And a few episodes ago, I did a whole episode on how you could create a transformation in your life. And this is where typically once you've audited your life, you can put in place the actions towards building that transformation. As you review your year, once you've done a life audit, you can ask yourself certain questions such as, what were some of the happiest moments this year? What are some of the moments you're most grateful for? And this is so important because we're always rushing and always running and we don't pause. And there might have been some amazing things you've totally forgotten about. Maybe go through your calendar or go through your photos. What were some amazing moments that you're so happy of? And there's also an invitation for you, maybe do a bit more of that. If it was such an amazing moment that it brought you so much joy. Equally, maybe what were some of the hard moments or the obstacles? and the challenges, and what did you learn from them? What did you learn by going through each of these challenges? And how did it help you to grow? And then as you're exploring some of the happiest moments, some of the obstacles, some of the learnings, what were some new things that you tried? What are you disappointed and frustrated about that you want to change for next year? This is where you anchor that feeling of, okay, next year, I will finally create that change. So we want to both celebrate how far you've come and all the progress that you've made, and equally set the tone for the following year. What are some things that you're going to continue? What are some projects that you will continue to explore? And if you're listening to this episode and it's no longer the new year or change in year, this is an invitation at any given moment. It could be on your birthday, it could be a monthly review. At any given moment, it's great to just pause, review, reflect, look back at the last 6 months or the last year, see how far you've come, see the mistakes you've made, see what you've learned, feel the gratitude for what has happened, and set the tone, set the expectation, the appreciation for what is to come. These things can help you to audit your life and also set the pace for the year ahead and for what you want to achieve in your life, and to create that foundation for any transformation that you want to take through. Pausing to reflect on how far you've come, whether it's in your work, your personal life, or any different area, can really support you to create any change that you want. It gives you that momentum, it gives you that clarity. It's something I've been practicing for 4 or 5 years. Every single year, pause and review everything. Hope that this has been useful for you. Would love to hear in a comment your main takeaways and what you're going to put in place and how it has supported you. And also, if you want to kick-start the year with a boost, very excited to say that I'm working with a few very small handful of people, founders, entrepreneurs, one-on-one, to go in depth in coaching. So if you want to create a transformation in your business, if you want to break through certain platforms that are holding you back and scale with greater ease and focus, then tune in to the link below in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Wishing you a wonderful day ahead.